Well, we all love our books. Once in a while, we find one book that just speaks to us in a personal level, and this one has been it for me. As you can see, it's Scarlet Wings by Erin Stewart. It's her debut novel, and I have to say that I have loved it so much. I don't know if the camera is going to catch how many post-its I have added to this book, and I have to say, this is an amazing book about surviving trauma, about finding a new normal, about finding your place in the world when you feel like you have lost everything. In this book, we are going to follow the main character. It's called Ava. Ava is a fire survivor. She has lost like 60% of her body to the flames, and she has a network of scars that covers her body, and her face, it's not her face anymore, it's like some patchwork of skin, as she herself says in the book. And when we find her at the beginning of the book, she thinks of herself as a monster. She wants to fall into this idea of how she was before the fire, and she has been isolating herself, and she's in that place of self-hatred, and maybe guilt survivor and all of things, because her parents died in the fire, and also her cousin, and now she's living with her aunt and her husband, and she's in that place, into that place where she's trying to find her way. And I have to say that as a character, she's so powerful, because she goes from a point of seemingly no return, where everything is lost, where she has survived, but she's trying to find her footing, where she's trying to find something that makes her be who she was. And she's going to therapy, and they're going to tell her that she has to find her new normal. Before you had a normal, everything is lost, everything has changed. So you have to find what it's your new normal after the catastrophe, after the trauma. You have to find your own way again. And it's in this therapy that she finds a girl called Piper, and she is also a survivor. There was a car wreck, and she has been left in a wheelchair, and she also has burns in parts of her body. And despite all of that, seems like Piper is very cheerful. She's full of fire, and it looks like she's conquering all her fears and everything. And she's going to grab Ava by the hand, and she's going to try to pull her to the light, so to speak. And it's amazing how these two women, these survivors, just try to find their place. And what I have loved about this book is that it's not linear. Sometimes when you go through trauma, people think that recovery has to be linear, and it isn't. Sometimes there are setbacks, and sometimes doctors tell you something that you weren't expecting, so you return to the point of back. And it's like survival and recovery and all of that, it's like you're making circles, and sometimes you take 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards, and the important thing is that you keep on moving forward. But sometimes it's too much and you feel like you're lost. And I have found that this book, it's amazing in the way it portrays trauma, and the fact that it's not always easy to heal from that. And I also love that there is different perspectives of different survivors, and that all of them deal differently with the pain and with the search for the new normal and who they are after whatever it was that happened to them. For instance, there is Piper. Piper, it's not a character that I enjoyed as much as I did Ava, but Piper comes from another place. She's going through another struggle. I'm not going to say much because it's something that comes near the end of the book, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. But I love that she comes from another point. You see her as cheerful, you see her as full of life, but you never see what it's truly boiling inside of her. And it's real. It's like real life. I love that this book, it's real, as I say, that it pictures trauma as it is, as it pictures people just coping in different ways, because not everyone is the same, and everyone has their own coping skills. And I love that Piper is so different, and that she tries to find her own way in her own way, and she comes from another place, and her pain is different, and sometimes she cannot handle it anymore, and sometimes she comes as bossy, but maybe it's because she's hiding something inside, the fear of abandonment, or of being left alone. So she's a very powerful character in her own way. So yeah, it's a novel, it's a book about characters and about the power of surviving and of becoming more, of finding yourself. It's amazing. It's like it says here, everyone has scars. Some are just easier to see. I mean, there's scars that can be shown in your body, and then there are scars that are inside you and your soul, in your heart, and maybe those hurt more or less, but you cannot compare your trauma to another people, because every one of us have their own heart, and we have our own pain, and we have our own traumas. So this book for me has spoken to my soul, and I have to say I love it. What is this book about? As I say, we follow Ava as she goes back to high school, where she's going to be judged and look differently, because she looks like, well, she doesn't look like a regular girl. She's a fire survivor, and she's full of scars. She has missing an ear, and everyone just is, high school, where everyone has to look perfect, and you have to you look perfect. In high school, you have to have all this makeup, and you have to be perfect. Your eye has to be perfect. Your clothes have to be perfect. And then there is Ava, and she feels like she is less. And I think that this book is powerful also in that, and in telling people it doesn't matter what happened to you. You are not your body. You are not less. You are worthy. So we are going to find this girl who tries to find herself in this setting in high school, where people sometimes can be cruel, and she's going to find a girl called Kenzie. She's going to be like the nemesis. She's going to be a very complex character too, and she's going to be just competing with Ava and saying that she's a monster and making fun of her. And we are going to see how Ava goes from hiding herself to showing herself, to empower herself, and to say, okay, maybe I spot these scars, maybe I have been born, maybe I don't look like I did before, but this is me, and I'm here to stay. And I love that. This book is so amazing. And of course, Piper, the girl that she met in the therapy, it's one of the students of this high school, and there is going to be a very interesting story involving Piper, Kenzie, and Ava. And I'm not going to say anything more about the plot, because I want it to surprise you. But let's say that this is a book about second chances, about redemption. Even Kenzie, it's a character that's very complex. She seems to be like the perfect girl that has everything, and she's a bully, but I love her arc. I love to see where she comes from, and I love to see how she is toward the end, and I love to see how she's a bitch sometimes, well, most of the book, but the second chances, the redemption also applies to her. And I love to see how brave Ava can be, and all the survivors, when they have to go back to their normal lives, wherever normal is, and they have to find their own ways again in the world. I mean, it's very powerful to people who have chronic illnesses, or people who have experienced trauma in their lives. You should pick this book, because it's a very positive view. There is parts of it that makes you cry, that makes you hurt, because there is this little girl, well, not so little, but a little woman that wants to be who she was. She was beautiful, she was perfect, and she feels like she's less than she was. She looks at the mirror, and the person looking back at her, it's not who she used to be. And she has to begin finding pieces of herself, construct her anew. She looks at herself and she sees the scars, but maybe they're like a puzzle, and she has to reconstruct herself. And I love how when people go to her and say, get well son, or you're a survivor, or you're inspiring, I love how she feels rage inside her, because okay, yes, I'm inspiring, but I want to be normal, I want to be who I was. I love that, as I say, that this book is so accurate about what goes in the head of someone who is recovering from trauma. It doesn't have to be a fire like Ava. It can be a chronic illness that changed your life. It can be something that happened to you. It can be the death of someone you love. We all, I think that as a person, every one of us has gone through trauma. And I love how this book shows you that you don't have to compete. It's like there is no right to say I suffer more than the other, or I cannot cry because this person has it worse. No, everything you feel, you have a right to feel, and sometimes you are completely deconstructed and you're completely lost, and you have to find your way in any way you can, or maybe you have to ask for help, or maybe you have to stare in the mirror until you feel yourself staring back again. And this book is so powerful. I mean, there was like tons of things I wanted to say about this book, about the positivity, about the fight, about recovery, about the scars that show that you were stronger than what tried to hurt you, to kill you. But I mean, everything I say will fall short, because this book, it's one of those books that you have to read. It spoke to me, to my soul directly, and when I finished it, it was like, no, I need to know more. I need to follow these characters. I need to know where the journey goes. I need them to be a part of my life. They already are after reading the book. So the only thing I can say is, if you have scars, if you have been hurt, if you have to find yourself again, if you have to find a new normal after everything you knew has been stripped away, just pick this book, because you are going to love it, and it's amazing. And if this is her first book, I just want to know what Erin Stewart keeps writing, because she is an amazing writer. And yeah, I haven't said much about her style of writing, but it's very direct. It's she has been um, I guess that she has been informing herself very well about what survivors from fires go through, because it's a very informative book. I have read lots of things I didn't know about. So she has done an amazing research, and she has transferred it into the book so amazingly well. And you're going to find these chapters that bring you closer to the characters. And as I say, the characters are so powerfully written that you will feel that it's like a memory of someone who really lived, and not some character that she made up. And yes, I love this book. I really do. Thank you for watching. Bye.